masculinity is not preferable to femininity, femininity is not preferable to masculinity. They need each other always.
Hi, my name is Chaya Tsakernik. I currently live in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, originally from South Africa.
What is gender according to Kabbalah? When you're looking at gender from a Kabbalistic perspective, it's a description of a type of energy, a way of being, a way of functioning. The Hebrew word would be mashpia. It's loosely translated as provider, and the female would be makabel, which also loosely translated as receiver. It's again a state of being, and depending on the context or relationship or timing, you would use one or the other or both. If you think about the physical process of creation, when anything in our world needs to be created, there'll be the seed that you put into the ground and how that seed is fertilized and develops into a tree. So the ground doesn't take in the seed and just sit with it. It receives the seed and develops it into something really actually infinitely greater than what it originally received. So this masculine, feminine, they work together. When they work together well, when the masculine is providing and the female is receiving and receiving actively, working with what it's received, you get creation of an idea, of a tree, of a child, a human. And it's a very powerful interplay, and it's really the interplay that is the fabric of our universe. What I think is so significant about understanding this from a Kabbalistic perspective, seeing gender as really energy flow, and how these energies work so well together. First of all, we can take away the better or worse. There isn't a preferred. Masculinity is not preferable to femininity, femininity is not preferable to masculinity. They need each other always. They are a dynamic that when each functions in its ideal way, infinite things can be produced. It's just powerful to move the discussion away from, if there's a better one or a worse one, or if there's a higher one or a lower one. This is a flow. So really, to understand it as a flow is so insightful and just empowering. So to understand the qualities and appreciate the value of feminine energy, and to understand the quality and the value of masculine energy, and how when they work together, they're both in their element, it creates a very, very seamless flow, and beautiful things emerge from that. When we are in the position to receive and we are uncomfortable with that, so we try and switch places and turn into the giver because receptivity is uncomfortable, that creates chaos. It interrupts the flow. And the real provider in that space isn't able to give what they came to give. So in each context, in each relationship, we want to examine that relationship, and we want to know, what's my role here? If I'm a parent, I'm the provider, I'm the authority. And my child is the recipient, the receiver. I don't want to switch roles. I don't want to say, I don't want to be a provider. I don't want to create the rules for this space. I don't want to be imposing. So I'll switch places and I'll let my child decide. That disrupts the flow. That creates chaos in the relationship of parent and child, the same way that it would create chaos in the classroom with teacher and student. So we want to understand that these two forces, these two energies are always at play in every environment, in every relationship. And we want to be able to look at it and say, in this context, which side do I need to be on? Which role am I playing to benefit this relationship, to put it in its most ideal form and state? Is it going to be most ideal if I am in the recipient role, active recipient, or will it be most ideal if I am in the provider, giver role in this context? And I think if we look at gender like that, if we look at the energy of masculinity and femininity as two energies that are in constant interaction with each other, and we're able to ask ourselves, which energy do I want to lean on in this context, we can really have a lot of clarity and a lot of direction for how to relate to our various roles. What are the qualities of a good recipient and what are the qualities of a good provider? So I think really what they both need is confidence. You need confidence to provide, to believe that I have something to give. So if I'm in the provider role, the masculine role, the teacher, parent, husband, the giving role, I want to believe, I want to feel and know that I have something to offer, that there's something that I have to give, and that is worth something, that is meaningful. So it's the confidence in what I bring to the table. And on the recipient side, if I'm taking the receiver role, student, child, wife, I want to have the confidence that I am capable of receiving another, that creating space for somebody's contribution and developing that contribution and working with that contribution comes from a place of strength. It is my strength in that interaction, and having the confidence and the humility. I think humility is a key piece, having the humility and the grace to allow space for another's contribution, setting the confidence that doesn't threaten me in any way, but that this is really an expression of my strength as well. Giving space to another is a reflection on my value just as much as it is a reflection of theirs, seeing what comes through when I've created that space for the other to give. So looking at that in a relationship, it's a different spin on vulnerability in the sense that I'm not needy and desperate and dependent and can't function without a husband. I want to engage in this flow of energy where my husband provides, I receive that, I bring it forward. So I want to open myself up to his generosity, his ideas. Together with that, create a home and bring children into the world. So if I'm not looking at it as weakness, then it allows me to be more open. If I'm not looking at it as threatening, it's a contribution. I'm looking for the contribution. And I know that as somebody with feminine energy, my skill set is taking contributions and expanding them and developing them. So seeing that partnership can really help direct my vulnerability. The masculine and feminine functioning in their ideal state, there's infinite potential there for what can come out of that relationship, as represented by the physical birth of a child. You see that very clearly. But in all other areas, if we're talking about developing ideas, we're talking about a relationship between a man and a woman, we're talking about a teacher and a student, when there's real, open, full receptivity, which inspires deep, generous, passionate giving, that combination has infinite impact. I think this is a very refreshing approach to a very loaded topic in our current day, feeling like either there's a competition between the genders or there's a preferred gender, or because we're in this some sort of competition, trying to be both at the same time. And when we zoom out, and that's really what Kabbalah does. Kabbalah is a zoom out and looking at a wholesome picture of existence, creation, where we all come from, and how this whole reality universe runs. To understand that masculinity and femininity are two energies that will always be there working together. From the first stages of creation, there was always this dynamic of provider, receiver, receiver giving back, generating more from the provider, receiving that, creating with it, and that flow.